want answers for. And my background is in music licensing, and I'm also a cheerleader myself. I've competed with Team England Paracheer, and I've been on all-star teams as well myself, and I'm still heavily involved in Paracheer, but my background was always in music and in music licensing. And when the whole issues surrounding music and cheerleading came about, I basically set up the task of creating a solution for the industry, whereby we work with the music industry to clear the rights, specifically for cheerleading, that include all the rights that you need. And that's basically why I'm here today. My experience in music itself involves working for a music licensing company before, and working with a number of different labels and publishers, licensing music into TV, film, and advertising, and so on. So to get started today, just a few little webinar kind of tips and hacks. We've got a little chat function, so if you wanted to message some chats, then you can go ahead and do that, ask some questions, some topics of conversation that you might want to talk about. And then we also have a Q&A, so you can also ask questions through that. And you can also raise your hand, which is kind of like a little wave to be like, hey, I have something to say. So there's a few different things that you can do on the webinar here. If you need to leave early or you haven't actually been able to make it, then we are actually sending a video out after, well, probably tomorrow, a video recording of the whole thing. Hopefully we've now got that all recording and it's all good. And you will all be muted right now, so we haven't got all this extra noise happening. But if you wanted to raise your hand and ask something, then we can kind of unmute you, and you can let us know what you wanted to talk about and what questions you had. So let's actually get started with the webinar. Today, the topic of conversation is, how much is music costing your gym? And the types of topics that we're going to be covering today is the rise in costs of cheer music, the options that are available for you to be legal, the rights that are required for cheer music, using cover music, what you need as a governing body or an event producer. I know we've got some of you guys here today, and also enforcement. So the first point is, why has there been a rise in cost of cheer music? Well, firstly, it was largely influenced by a lawsuit that had happened against some music producers, which then led to the industry kind of forcing the use of music towards a licensed model. And one of those models is bespoke music, which I know music producers like New Level Music, they've gone completely bespoke, which means they are actually hiring artists in, vocal artists and musicians to actually create music themselves. Kind of what the music industry does, except specifically for cheerleading. And so, of course, there's naturally going to be a higher cost of that. They've got to hire a music producer, they've got to hire artists, they've got to record and edit and mix that music. They need to write lyrical content, and it's very time consuming and expensive. And so that's why bespoke music is sort of a premium package, and very much targeted at those very big gyms, because they want something that's super custom to them, and it's a really great way to be legal and actually have something that's completely original and unique to a team. The other side of it is the rise in costs are also due to the fact that you need to license music, and licensing music means you need to pay a fee to purchase the license for a song. And then there's going to be additional admin fees with regards to noting down which tracks are being used to actually go ahead and license that through a platform, and so on and so forth. And it's not that music producers are trying to make more money, which is something that some people say, but it's actually that they're now doing it legally, and so therefore the extra costs have to be passed down to the teams. And ultimately, it's a cost that we should have always had, but due to kind of lack of knowledge and understanding about music licensing, and it just wasn't something that anyone did. And to be honest, the music industry didn't actually have a solution in place to handle these types of licenses. But cheerleading essentially got quite big very quickly, and was all kind of over social media. And naturally, somehow the music industry found out. And this is a problem that's not just unique to cheerleading. There are many other different sports that have this licensing issue, and it's also a global issue too. They often get people say, "Oh, it's just the American rules," but actually, no, it is a global issue, and it's governed by copyright law, which is held together by a treaty called the Berne Convention, where basically it states that copyright law exists worldwide, and if you want to use music, you need to ask permission from the actual artists or the writers of the music to use that in any other way than listening to it on Spotify, for example. So the reason why I started ClicknClear was we obviously saw this issue occur, and I was kind of able to work with the music industry people that I know very well to create a feasible solution for the industry that is affordable. So we are working directly with record labels and publishers like Universal, Warner, and a number of others to provide music which is fully pre-cleared with all the rights that you need onto our platform, which the team will send a link to, so that you as a gym owner and as music producers can actually instantly license music at a click of a button and have it include all of the rights that you need. Now there is a Facebook group that we've started, which is just a general discussion about music, using music, licensing. It involves a number of different people in the industry, cheerleading gyms, some music producers, governing bodies, event producers, and so on. It's called Using Music in Cheerleading. And we've created that as a community for you to share your frustrations, to share the challenges that you face, to share the great things that you've experienced in cheerleading music. You know, what great bespoke mixes are you getting made from a company like New Level Music, or you know, what tracks are you licensing from ClicknClear, and so on. And so it's really worth being part of that conversation. I think Emma's just shared it on the chat, so do feel free to add yourself on that. We've got some resources on there that I'll talk about a little bit later. But in terms of, you know, what options do you have for licensing music and to be legal, which have a varying degree of affordability? Well, there are kind of 3 or 4 different options that I'd say. The first one is bespoke music, so going completely original. It is more expensive because, of course, the additional costs of having real artists create music specifically for cheerleading is expensive and time consuming, but that is an option, and many of the big cheerleading gyms do that. And then you've got licensing music. So you can license music from, you know, a platform like ClicknClear, and we're working directly with the music industry. And once you've licensed that music, you can have a producer mix that music for you. And there are a number of music producers that we're already working with, which we're creating a directory for, and we'll be releasing that fairly soon. So you can go on to ClicknClear and find the licenses, the songs that you want, license them, or send them to your music producer, or find a music producer, and all of that is kind of on there on the website. And music producers will typically charge a fee to mix the music and then the license fee, or they'll just bundle it all together and you'll be charged a fee, and it will include the licenses in there. It's kind of up to them how they do it. But it would also actually be interesting to find out, in terms of budgeting, you know, what would be easier for you? Would it be easier if a music producer just said, this is the fee, it includes all the licenses? Or is it easier for a producer to say, this is our mixing fee, and this is the fee for the license, and this is an estimation of the fee for the licenses? Be interesting to get your thoughts. So if you've got some questions or opinions on that, please do share it. The licensing fees, you know, can vary depending on the number of tracks that you want to use, and the level of artists that you're, like the actual tracks that you're using. So there's always just that to kind of bear in mind. So that was the second one. The third way of licensing or being legal is to, again, license music from a platform like ClicknClear, and then mix it yourself. It was something that teams and used to do all the time. But of course, when all the legal music issues came about, teams are kind of a bit scared or nervous about mixing music themselves. And I think that's something that we're really able to open back up again with ClicknClear, is those teams, those small community teams who don't have the budgets to pay music producers can actually just license music and mix the music themselves. And that's a really great option. And there are mixing softwares out there like GarageBand or Audacity where you can use all of that and have a go. And there's plenty of YouTube tutorials and so on as well. The other option is you can just get pre-made mixes that are licensed, and it's actually something that we're working with a number of our music producers with, where they're going to be licensing music from our platform and uploading pre-made mixes, and that will be all included in the price. So you can essentially go on and find music that you can mix and make a custom mix, or you can actually just go on to our pre-made mix database and just get music straight off there, including all of the rights that you need with the license agreements and so on. And then finally, the cheapest way to use music in a cheer mix is to use music that is out of copyright. When I say out of copyright, it means that the copyright has expired. So in copyright, there is a duration of length, varies in every country, but essentially it's usually about 70 or 75 years after the death of the last writer. So for example, the Beatles, all of their music is still in copyright. And when Paul McCartney passes away, sadly, the copyright will be out of copyright 70 years after the date of his death. And so you'll hear, like gymnastics, for example, and some other sports will use a lot of classical music because it is often out of copyright. But it's always worth double checking, because it may not always be, and it may be that the version that you're wanting to use is a new recording that has recently been released. But that is another option that you can do. But essentially what ClicknClear do is we work with the music industry, and we've got the backing of some of the biggest names in the music industry, from Warner to Universal, and we've got the rights to over 6 million tracks. Now on the platform we have a lot less than that, but that's because we're currently working through 6 million tracks, very busy over here, to determine what is fully cleared and what we can upload onto the platform. And publishing rights are quite complicated. Copyright has many different entities involved, because there's often many different people who've written a song, and I'll explain more about that in a little bit. But we're kind of working through that, which will mean that we can bring back the sort of benefits of old school mixes, and teams and music producers can instantly license music directly from the music industry, download it and then mix it for just $15 or $25 per track per mix. And that's for 1 year's use. So you can use that for a whole season, and then next year, if you wanted to reuse your mix, you can just relicense it. It's super simple. And we've been able to do that largely because of the relationships that we've got within the music industry, but also the fact that as a market in cheerleading, there's a lot of demand for music. And because of that high demand, we're able to negotiate down on the prices. And $15 to $25 is kind of unheard of in the music industry. But it's something that they acknowledge is a problem that they also need to be a part of and solve. And so that's how we've been able to manage that situation. But essentially it saves time, it saves money, and means that we can deliver great music with total peace of mind. So going on to talk a little education about music licensing, we're going to talk about the rights that are actually required in cheerleading music and many other sports as well. So there are essentially two sides to music. There's the master rights, or the master side, which is the right for the actual recording. So who actually sang the recording, what was the released recording, the actual kind of MP3 file in a way. The other side is the publishing rights, and that's basically the people who've written the melodies, the lyrics, the little guitar riff and the drum solo and so on. And essentially there are, several different people often involved in that, particularly when it comes to top 40 well-known music. And you need to have both of those sides in order to license a track. You need permission from all of those people. And in cheerleading, in terms of your use, the rights for the use of it, you need the ability to edit and adapt the music. So changing the tempo, adding sound effects and voiceovers, mixing it along with other tracks. Basically what a music producer does, or what you do to mix the music to your routine. So edit and adapt the music. You need the right to choreograph. So that's basically putting the routine to your music, because you're interpreting the music in a different way to what it was originally intended. Then you need the right to distribute the mix within your team. So creating like 35 copies or up to 35 copies within your team so that they can use it at home, you can use it in training, and you can use it at competition. And then the right to share the music on YouTube and Facebook. And I know that many gyms are kind of muting their routines on YouTube and Facebook because of the music rights issues, and it's really sad because they then can't showcase and share the amazing routine that they've put out. So we are including those rights, but the only catch is that it has to be unmonetized, and that basically means you can't make money from the video. And really, like, especially YouTube's content ID system, the way that they can track music which is unlicensed, they'll kind of catch it all anyway, and the music industry typically will kind of take those little bits of money. But it's only, if you're getting like 100 views in a video, it's unlikely you'd even be eligible to monetize the video as it is. But it is a right that we're including, which means you can upload your routine with the music and you're all okay. And if you want to find out a little bit more about that, we do have a resource on the Using Music in Cheerleading Facebook page. So just go on there. I think Emma can probably direct you to which one it is. There she is. She's got it. She's on it. So do check that out on there. And then that kind of leads me on to cover music. I know cover music is a really big topic as well. There's quite a few producers kind of creating cover music. And just to give you a bit of information about what it actually is, a cover version of a track is essentially a new master right. So let's say, for example, Beyonce's Run the World. That's the original version. It's Beyonce's track. Now, if I, as a music producer, for example, wanted to record my own version, Chantal Epp's version of Beyonce's Run the World, I can do that. And I can license my master version to anybody, but I also have to have cleared the publishing rights. Now, the publishing rights in Beyonce's Run the World, sadly, are fairly complicated, not the most complicated I've ever seen, but there's about 6 different publishers, so 6 different companies that you need to get in touch with, and they each have a percentage of ownership. So, for example, one publisher will have 20.24%, another will have 8.44%, another will have 10.14%. These are actually the percentages. I'm just not telling you which companies. And that will be owned between some of the majors, some of the smaller independent publishers, and you'd have to clear all of those rights in order for it to be legal. So that's essentially, if you were to license the original track, that's sort of 7 people you'd need to speak to. And if you're to license Chantal Epp's version, I'd give you the license, and then I'd have to ensure that I also have a deal with all 6 of those other publishers that are involved in that track. And as a team, it's kind of your responsibility to check that these licenses and these rights are actually in your license agreements. And we've got a little bit of language that you can kind of look out for on cover music. Emma is going to share that again on the Using Music in Cheerleading Facebook group to direct you there. And that will be really helpful to kind of understand what to look out for. But essentially, some of the main things that we use is we've got a restricted list of artists from some of our rights holders. And a restricted list means a list of artists who we cannot use in cheerleading at all right now. And that's because they're either super protective of their rights, or they don't want anybody to edit and adapt their music. And a couple examples of that is Christina Aguilera and Justin Timberlake. And so actually those artists aren't licensable for cheerleading, and it's kind of the biggest giveaway if a team or music producer has the proper licenses or not. But again, check out the doc which Emma has shared, and there's a bit more information about that. So just a couple more topics left to talk about here today. I know we've got some governing bodies and some event producers here, and whilst you as a team and a music producer need a license, there is also performing rights licenses needed for a variety of other things. So the music producer needs the right to edit and adapt the music and and create a new MP3 file. And then the team needs the right to choreograph, distribute it within their team, and share it on YouTube and Facebook. And then the event producer, whoever's running the competition, needs a performing rights license to play the music in the venue. And they get that through their collecting society. So in the UK, we have PRS and PPL. In the US, there's like 5 or 6. You've got ASCAP and BMI and a number of others. In Canada, you've got SOCAN and so on and so forth. And we're actually building a list of collecting societies so that we can help direct you to the right people if you're an event producer or running a competition. But essentially, you need that license. You need to get the performing rights license from the venue. And this is also for gym owners too, actually. If you have your own cheerleading gym, then you need a performing rights license to play the music in your gym. And the music that you are playing in the competition, for example, needs to all be licensed. Technically, if you are playing unlicensed music in the competition, the performing rights license isn't actually valid. So it's, for event producers, to protect yourselves, it's the best thing to do would be to do some level of enforcement, which we'll kind of talk about a little bit later. And the other thing too is you should also be reporting the songs that are being used at every single event. And that's actually something that we can help with all the usage information. And of course, it's not really applicable for something like bespoke music, but they will have their own licenses. And as long as, you know, that they have all of the rights and they own the music and everything, then we're all good. And that's something to kind of talk about, and we can be reporting those usages to the collecting societies. Now, the other thing that you might want to do as a competition provider is you might want to create DVDs or other memorabilia. Again, this is something that you might get from your collecting society. It's also something that we can help you out with. And you also might want to live stream. And I know I had a conversation with someone earlier about this. But basically, live streaming you can do on some platforms, likely without having to get a license yourself, because it'll be covered by the broadcasted platform. For example, YouTube and Facebook. You might be able to, but it's always good to just double check that what their terms of agreements are, and if you are actually allowed to live stream with all this music. If you are hosting a live stream on your own platform, your own website, or you have a paid for subscription where people can pay to watch a live stream, then you're going to need to get a live streaming license yourself. And again, you can do that through the collecting societies, but it depends on the territory that you're wanting to live stream to, who's going to see it, revenues of your live stream subscription, and so on. And it's something else that we can help with. And then finally, there's broadcast rights, which is putting it out on TV. And it's typically up to the broadcaster to actually pay the performing rights license in this case. But it may be that you'll need to report all of the songs that are being used in each of the mixes and what's being played in between. And so it's just a little bit of like being aware of the information that you're going to need to report. And again, we've got tools that we can help you with on that. So I think this kind of leads nicely into enforcement, because I know some of the event producers sometimes get a little bit under pressure of, you know, well, you're not enforcing this, and so I don't need to license music. Well, actually, it's not down to event producers to enforce music licensing. Something I always like to say is, you know, they don't enforce you to not be stealing people's phones, but it's the law, and copyright law exists, and that's there to protect music. So it's not down to the event producers to be enforcing it, but of course it seriously helps and means they're going to be much better protected. Now, we understand that there is a transition period. We've gone through a few kind of wavy couple years here, but it's kind of like safety rules. So they're there for a reason, and some gyms choose to ignore them and can put their athletes and the industry at risk. And essentially the same goes for music. There are going to be gyms and music producers who are not correctly licensing music, and it's going to put the industry at risk, and they'll continue to ignore it until something happens. And that something might be another lawsuit from a different publisher or a different record label. And that can happen unless we all start using music correctly. And you might ask, how does anyone know that you're actually licensing the music? Well, there are actually music industry people who are spectating competitions already, and they may well be checking if the licenses are true or not. And they can contact you at any time to demand payment, which will be obviously more than what you would have paid for a license. And they can threaten to take that further. And of course, we don't ever want that to happen. But the biggest tell-all for them as well is the sort of restricted artist list. They each have their own restricted artists. If they hear it in a mix, they know 100% that is not actually properly licensed. So some level of enforcement would actually be very beneficial for our industry, especially as we're kind of shifting and moving towards the Olympic movement. We don't want that sort of bad exposure. And we know that in the US, some event producers are already enforcing licensing of music, which is a great step. As for everyone else, it's not a matter of if, it's really just a matter of when. So you as a team, as a gym owner or a music producer, if you don't want to risk legal action, the best thing to do is to just license the music. And I hope that today we've kind of talked about the various different ways in which you can do that, what's going to be more cost effective than others, what other options do you have? And it's kind of your responsibility to be checking the music producers that you're working with, checking the license agreements, making sure that it is covering everything that you need. And if you're unclear or uncertain about something, you can check some of our materials that we've got on our Facebook group. You can always just double check with some governing bodies or an event producer and so on as well. But essentially, we're here to help as well. We believe that easy to access, fully cleared, impactful music is an important part of maximizing participation and a broad audience engagement within the sport. And we just, as a sport, we cannot tolerate another sort of legal risk with regards to music, and that's very much why we're here. Is we want you to be able to use music that you like and that and we're working on making that happen through direct relationships within the music industry, and we're clearing all those rights, working through the 6 million tracks, trying to figure out what is going to be available to you now and what will be available to you later on this year. But we're constantly uploading music every sort of week to 2 weeks. So that kind of concludes everything that we wanted to talk about today in terms of topics. I think some of you guys have some questions, so I think if we just go back, I'm going to go back into our chat here and just find out what questions we might have. So the first one we've got here is if you just send these questions in, they'll come through and I'll just answer them as they come through. So the first question is, can I upload to my gym YouTube but not with YouTube ads? So essentially, yes, you can upload with music on ClicknClear, and music that has the rights to upload onto YouTube. You'll have to check your license agreements. But with ClicknClear, you definitely can. And you can upload that music onto YouTube, but it just means you can't monetize. So it means that ads will likely play, but you won't be earning any revenue from YouTube views. It'll be going likely to the labels and publishers. But of course, if you're only getting a few hundred views, it's really not a lot of money. My background is actually in music licensing for YouTube, and I used to work directly with YouTubers like PewDiePie and Veritasium and Yogscast, and I've seen sort of see how much they can make, but also how very little they can make on a video too. But yeah, essentially you can, anything on ClicknClear, you can upload onto YouTube and Facebook. So I've got another question here. What if I have a music person that I love? How can I use ClicknClear with my current music producer? So you've got a music, I'm assuming that means you've got a music producer that you really like using. That's great. If you're wanting to use ClicknClear and using the licenses, all you need to do is you can create a playlist of music and you can send it to your producer, who can then collaborate on that playlist with you, and they can find other songs if they wanted to. But actually they can then, they'll need to go through our approval process in order to get download access. When they've got download access, they can then test the music out in your mix, and then they can license the music, and it's all good. So they don't have to already be working with us in order to work with us, but they will need to kind of sign up in order to get the download access and test the music out in the mix first. But of course, if you've got someone you love and you've found some really great music on ClicknClear, send them our way. Okay, another question. So this is about kind of the online video. I can't monetize, so can I use it on Facebook Boost posts? Like if I put up my routine with my music and boost it to reach a wider audience. Yeah, I don't see a problem with that. That's not, you're just kind of boosting the post. You're not necessarily like paying, well, there's some form of kind of advertisement there, but you're not directly advertising. You're just sharing a sort of editorial video in a way. It's a non-commercial video. I don't see the problem in boosting a post, but it is something that we can probably just double check with some of our rights holders and just make sure that that's not then considered advertising, and that actually it's just kind of part of showing it to a wider audience. And then we've got another question here. How are licenses delivered so I can show my music producer their legal tracks? Great question. So we have, when you go ahead and want to license music, you'll go through a licensing agreement that will, when you've licensed a track, you'll get a PDF version of that agreement in your account, and you can share that with your music producer, you can share that with an event producer, and it includes all of the rights that you need. We have got an example one on our website on clicknclear.com. And I think there's some example language of things to look out for in our Facebook group, but essentially our EULA, which is an end user licensing agreement, that's the word to look for on our website. That is all available there to kind of check it first. But all of the, whenever you license music, you'll get a PDF download. Okay. Just click that one, answer live. Okay, got another really good question here. So what regions am I covered for? I'm in the UK, but I take teams to the US to compete. Great. So we have worldwide rights for a lot of our tracks. Some tracks are limited to different territories, and wherever that's the case, it'll just mean that that territory won't show up. So when you go ahead and license music, you can license it for a single territory, for example, the UK or the US, and so on and so forth. And typically, the licenses that we charge, that we sell, are licensed per territory. But if you want to go to the US as well, for example, going to Worlds, you can purchase our World license, which allows you to be in your home territory and then one other additional territory, for a slightly additional, a slightly higher fee. Hope that one answers your question. What if I stream over Twitter? Is that okay? So if you're live streaming, Twitter's performing rights license may cover you, but you're going to have to check with Twitter, just check some of their documentation. If you are planning on uploading a video to Twitter, then it wouldn't actually be covered under our licenses. I don't actually believe Twitter is fully covered for performing rights, and that's why we won't have that right now. We do for some of our tracks, but for the good majority, we're kind of restricting it to YouTube and Facebook, and they are kind of the main things right now. And again, we've got another question with live streaming on IG. It's again a similar thing. Instagram is part of Facebook, so technically is likely to be covered under their performing rights. So if you're live streaming on Instagram, it's likely to be okay. But again, if you're uploading a video onto Instagram, there's, you know, it's a slightly grey area. But because it's Facebook owned, it's more likely to be okay than not. Another person, is it difficult to sign up for this? Is there a membership fee, or do you just pay as you go? So with ClicknClear, you can sign up right now. Emma can probably get a sign up link on the chat, and basically you just enter your details. You can then, the sign up essentially means that you can listen to a full version of the music. If you go onto the website without logging in, you'll only be able to listen to little snips, kind of previews, 30-second previews of each track. So it is free to sign up, and our model right now is a pay-as-you-go model. So you can license music for $15 or $25 per track per mix for 1 year. And that depends, the pricing is dependent on the artist. We've got a sort of independent artist tier and then a commercially released music tier. And yeah, that's basically how you sign up. As a music producer, there's an additional kind of step that you can take, which means that you can then also get download access and test these tracks out on your mix before you actually go ahead and finalize it and license it. So I think those are sort of all the questions that we had. Really great questions. Oh no, we've got another one. So in order to live stream a cheer competition, the organizer has to make sure that every team has a licensed mix. Yes, to live stream a cheerleading competition, the organizer does need to ensure that every team is licensed, and the best way of doing that is some form of enforcement. Be it, you know, if you're sending your music in, then send your license agreement in as well, or it's that you need to have your license agreement ready for a spot check at any time. It's kind of up to the event producer as to how they want to do that. We've got some ideas, and we've also got some wording with regards to sort of music rules that you can implement that will help you with that process. But that's kind of how that will work. What if I mess up? Will I get in trouble? Meaning I violate copyright law but was trying to follow the rules. So it's a difficult question. Sometimes they'll give you the benefit of the doubt if you were trying to follow the rules. And if you were, so let's say, for example, you hired a music producer and you thought that they were fully legal, and it turned out they were actually using unlicensed music. Well, it's not then your fault, it's the music producer's fault. So really it's worth checking the agreements with your music producers. But essentially, you know, if you do mess up, the best case scenario is that they'll just be like, you have to license the music. And if it's not licensable, they might charge you a slightly higher fee. Or, you know, worst case scenario, if you're using a lot of unlicensed music, saying, sorry, I didn't realize, I didn't know this information, is not actually a valid excuse in copyright infringement. And so that's why, you know, these bigger lawsuits can happen. But essentially, you know, try your best to license music. And if it's somebody else's fault for giving you unlicensed music, then they're going to be the ones who are going to get in trouble. Okay, let's see what else. I've never got an agreement before from a music producer. What does it look like, and how do I know it's real? So as I said before, we've got our EULA is available on our website on clicknclear.com. Maybe Emma, if you can send the EULA, yeah, she's got it. That give you an example of our own EULA, which is, you know, from the music industry. And those are the kind of things to look out for. But as I kind of said before, talking about the rights that you need, the right to edit and adapt music, the right to choreograph, the right to create an online video, and the right to distribute music within your team, and the sort of main points, main rights that you need. And it's, if you're really unsure if it's real or not, you know, again, we're happy to help you out, and we know those key identifiers, so we can always just you know, just check over it, or you can get an event producer to check as well, or you can always, you know, hire a lawyer or just get some legal advice from a music lawyer. I wouldn't recommend going with just a regular lawyer. Music copyright is very complicated, and there are specialist music lawyers for these types of things. Okay. So I'm going to give you like 2 seconds. Any other questions? Quickly type away. I think that's it. If you do have any other questions, you can email us on music@clickandclear.com. Emma, QU for the email address to everyone. I hope this has been a really informative session for you all. We are going to be running a few more webinars throughout the season. We know it's a really helpful, useful tool and resource for teams, music producers, governing bodies, and event producers, and so on. So if you do have further questions that you didn't ask today or just come to mind later on, please do feel free to reach out or join us on another webinar, or the best thing to do would be to join our Using Music in Cheerleading Facebook group, which is compiled of sort of music industry professionals and cheerleading professionals to kind of have an open discussion about music. What you want, what you're looking for, get some advice, find some music producers, and so on and so forth. So hope you all enjoyed it today. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to sharing this with everyone, and we'll speak to you all soon. Bye.